beautiful voice. She sang it a little bit slower. My God, I'm getting emotional here. 2, 3, mabuhay! Hey, kamustang lahat? Hi everybody, I'm Pierre and welcome to Neon Reactions. Folks, today I first off want to congratulate you and say happy 127th Independence Day in the Philippines today. And I know it means a lot to you. I am the foreigner who is trying to learn everything about the country that I can, because yes, I feel myself there and not here where I am at the moment. So I am trying to dive in as far and as deep as I can. Today we will be watching the National Anthem. I have not yet listened to the National Anthem, and I thought this would be a good day to do that. And I have a video here where various artists, some of which I know, are singing the National Anthem. We've got Morissette, we've got Sarah Geronimo, Regine Velasquez, and a few other names that I've already heard. I think one of the other ladies I've also heard sing before. So we're going to listen to them. That's about 10 minutes long. It's just, I think, like 6 versions of the National Anthem. And after that, we will take a look at a video all about Luzon. It's called What You Need to Know About Luzon. And it is by Kirby Araullo, the Philippine historian. We already watched one of his videos and I actually liked his channel, and so we're going to take a look at another one of those. And yes, what more can I say? Let us dive in. I'm excited about this. Before we do, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like and share the video. Hop on over to my Patreon if you want to support the channel. Check out my Discord and my podcast with V and my 2-3 Mabuhay shirt. And if you have anything to tell me, you know, the comment section is the place to go. But now, happy 127th Independence Day. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen,
okay,
please rise for the National Anthem of the Republic of the Philippines.
Tayo po ay magsitayo, ilagay ang kanang kamay sa ating dibdib at awitin ang pambansang awit ng Republika ng Pilipinas.
Okay.
Bayang magiliw, pelas ng silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay, lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupang.
Sounds beautiful.
Di ka pasisiil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mo'y mukha, may dilang ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal, ang kislap ng wataw at mo'y tagumpay na nagdirinig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pag may di magdidilim, lupa ng araw na buhay pagsinta.
Wow.
Buhay ang langit sa piling mo, aming ligaya na pag may mang-aapi, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Wow. Okay. First of all, it's a beautiful melody. I always get a lump in my throat when I hear something like this. This is, even though it's not the national anthem of my country, I felt this. I felt this a lot. I will look up the lyrics after this whole thing. But for now, I just want to feel it. You know, I don't need to know what it's about. I just want to feel it. And this one is really nice. I don't have much of a connection to the national anthem of my own country. And therefore I feel very warm here now. I like this. Let's listen to the next artist. This is beautiful. Katrina Velarde.
Alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay, lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng maging sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiil sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong baghaw. May dilag ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning.
Sorry.
Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng luwalhati't pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo.
Wow.
Aming ligaya na pag may mga api ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Wow. Beautiful voice. She sang it a little bit slower. My God, I'm getting emotional here. This is wow. Her version was a little bit slower. Are we going to hear it with music at any time here, or is everybody always singing it a cappella without music? That would be very interesting. This is Sarah.
Bayang magiliw, pelas ng silang.
Oh no, that is Charisse Pempenko. But on the right, that is Sarah Geronimo, right? Okay, well, I'm sorry.
Alap ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting sa mandulupig. Di ka pasisiil sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa
music.
langit mong baghaw. May dilag ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng walhati't pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo.
Oh, wow.
Aming ligaya na pag may mga api ang mamatay na dahil sa'yo. Bayang magi.
That was, I liked the orchestra coming in there. Wow. That was beautiful. She had a little more of a husky voice. I enjoyed that. What was her name again? Charisse Pempenko. I'm going to have to remember that name. Please tell me more about her. I really liked her voice. Let's go on with Sarah. Come on, girl.
Pelas ng sinangalan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyan ka ng magiting sa mandulupig. Di ka pasisiil sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong baghaw. May dilagang tula at awit sa paglayang
Wonderful.
minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw na kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng walhati't pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya.
Such a beautiful voice.
May mga api ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Wow. One question. This dress that Sarah is wearing, she's got these giant shoulder pads that almost look like parts of an armor, shoulder protection. Morissette had the same giant shoulder pads when she was singing. Is this something special? Is this something traditional, or does that have a meaning? Please tell me. Clarice de Guzman. I have heard the name before, but okay. Oh.
Alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay, lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pa sisiig.
Beautifully soft.
Pundok sa simoy at sa langit mong bughaw, may dilag ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng luwal, hatid pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na
beautiful.
may mang-aapi ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Wow. So many names I'm going to have to look up to after this.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig. Di ka pa sisiil sa dagat at puntok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bughaw. May dilang ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagninigning. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng hatid pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pag may mang-api ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Wow. Wow. She was wow. She had so much power, and she even went into an at the end. Like, I'm going to have to look up the lyrics. I want to know, but it feels very strong, very passionate. This is beautiful. Wow. Lani Misa Lucha? Okay. And on the right, that's Miss Velasquez.
Silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay, lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig.
Okay.
Di ka masisiil sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit magbughaw. May dilag ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng luwal, hatid pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya ng pag may mang-aapi ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Wow, she had a very powerful voice, and she has a very grand aura around her. She's standing there like the queen herself. Wow. Very epic. That was nice. And now we've got Regine Velasquez. Okay. I've only heard her once or twice, a few songs, not much. We will be taking a look at her. She also has an episode on the Kwan on One show, and we'll take a look at that too. But now it's this here.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silangan.
Oh my God.
Ang
Wow.
puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyang ka ng magiging sa manlulubi.
Oh.
Di ka masisisi sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong may dilag ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nanginginig. Ang bituin ng araw na kanyang kamay magdilim. Lupa ng
Wow. That's many right there, right? Wow. Wow.
December 11th.
Wait a second. Wow. Okay, Regine, she had, it felt like, wow, that was crazy. I like how she carried herself through the anthem. Felt very dignified, very from the heart, beautiful. It is a beautiful anthem, I must say. Wow. And we will have to take a look, or I will have to take a look at the lyrics. I want to know what it's about. I mean, basically, the anthems of the world, they all have, almost the same to say about being proud, about the country, about everything. But I want to know the specific words. I want to know this. Sounded very, very nice. My God. And now we're going to learn a little bit about Luzon. And yeah, let's see what Kirby has to tell us.
December 11th is celebrated as Pampanga Day in the Philippines in commemoration of the creation of the province of Pampanga under Spanish rule on December 11, 1571. And it
Okay.
was in fact the very first Spanish colonial province founded on the island of Luzon. And La Pampanga, as it was known to the Spaniards, was a vast province. It was a huge province that roughly corresponds to what are now the provinces of Region 3 or Central Luzon. However, unknown to many, the history of what is now Pampanga and the Kapampangan people goes deeper and more profound than the foundation of this colonial province. Indeed, for many Kapampangan elders and culture bearers, December
Nice pictures. Filipino Struggles Through History by Carlos Botong Francisco. Very colorful.
December 11th is also remembered as the day the kingdom of our Luzonese ancestors officially fell to colonialism. Unknown to many, today's Kapampangan and Tagalog people, and pretty much the entire regions of Metro Manila, Central Luzon, and Southern Luzon, aka Southern Tagalog, are technically direct descendants of the Luzonese people and their pre-colonial kingdom of Lusong or Luzon. So, in today's video, we'll go
Was that an old...
colonial kingdom
Wait,
of Lusong or Luzon.
is that an old painting of the Manila Bay? Oh, Very cool. That is nice.
So, in today's video, we'll go beyond the colonial history of Pampanga and dig deeper into the pre-colonial roots of the Kapampangans and the Tagalog people.
That is good.
Mabuhay or
Mabuhay.
Mabuhay kayo. Welcome back to another history video. It's me, Kirby Araullo, your friendly Pinoy historian. And in this channel, I make videos about our people's history, culture, and everything in between. So if you like learning about the Philippines, Southeast Asia, and beyond, don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and
we will
please
definitely
subscribe.
Do that.
Now, as a reminder, the Philippines, as a unified archipelago or a nation state that we know today, this identity and these borders did not yet exist when Magellan allegedly discovered our islands, about 500 years ago. I mean, the Philippines as we know it today did not even exist 200 years ago. People often forget that pre-colonial Philippines was actually a collection of diverse indigenous peoples with a wide range of societies. From coastal city-states to mountain villages, from animist cultures to flourishing sultanates and everything in between. And today's video is just a brief introduction to this topic. So check out the links below for a list of resources and recommended readings.
Those are actually very cool cartoon figures. Very, very down to the basics of traditional clothing. Very cool.
And if you would like to support my channel and my research, please be my patron on Patreon or be a member of my YouTube channel or get copies of any of my books, coloring books, and ebooks or any of the merch linked down below.
Very nice.
Now back to our topic. Let's dig deeper to the pre-colonial roots of Pampanga, Metro Manila, Central Luzon, Southern Luzon, and find out who exactly were the Luzones. I mean, what does Luzon even mean?
Yes.
Today, the word Luzon refers to the largest island of the Philippines and the fourth most populous island in the world. And the term Luzon is also often used to refer to the greater region of smaller islands surrounding the biggest island, aka the northern third of the Philippines. Unknown to many, the name Luzon itself came from the Spanish spelling of Lusong, the indigenous Kapampangan, and the ancient name of Manila Bay and the surrounding regions.
Lusong. Okay. Okay.
Now, Manila Bay was known as Lusong because it was where many of the mighty rivers of the region like the Rio Grande de la Pampanga and the Pasig River plunge or converge. The word Lusong in Kapampangan or Lusong in Tagalog means to plunge or to ride the wind or current, a direction where the water plunges or drains. And if you look at the map, from space or from above, you would see that Manila Bay was where all the mighty rivers of Central Luzon, Manila Bay, and Southern Tagalog would plunge into the sea. This is where these mighty rivers would drain their water into Manila Bay. Now,
that is interesting. That is very interesting where that word comes from. Wow.
According to Kapampangan oral traditions, Lusong also meant the land below the wind, as opposed to Sungsong, or the land above the wind. Now, the word Sungsong in both Kapampangan and Tagalog also means to sail against the wind, and it was often used by our Kapampangan ancestors to refer to what is now China. Though predominantly Tagalog-speaking today, the vast regions of Central Luzon, Calabarzon, aka Southern Tagalog, and Metro Manila, these vast lands that are now home to over a third of the Philippine population today were also once the ancestral homeland of the Kapampangan people. And indeed, according to historical linguistics and the careful study of the prehistory of the Tagalog people, the Kapampangans have called these vast territories their motherland for at least 2,000 and up to 5,000 years.
Wow. Okay. Okay. That is very interesting. I mean, I knew that it was a whole gathering of different cultures. I knew at one point they were put together. We watched a video on the history and the culture of the Philippines already. But some things, it's nice to talk only about Luzon now. This is interesting. Very cool.
The Tagalog-speaking people today, on the other hand, arrived later, sometime around 1,000 to 1,200 years ago. And eventually, the ancestors of today's Kapampangan people and Tagalog-speaking people became known in history as the Luzones. And together, they built a multi-ethnic, thriving, pre-colonial society. And actually, unknown to many Tagalog speakers today, they actually have deep Kapampangan roots, even if they no longer speak or understand Kapampangan. And no, I'm not saying that all Tagalog speakers today have Kapampangan roots, but many don't realize that they do. Let me just clarify that because sadly, today, there has been...
Okay. That is interesting. How would you... I mean, he'll probably say that now, but how would you trace that back?
been a lot of animosities between Tagalogs and the Kapampangans. And honestly, this is because of the stereotypes and the colonial divide and conquer tactics that dominated our society in the last couple of centuries. Yet, historically and culturally speaking, the Kapampangan and the Tagalog people share a lot in common. Like I said before, there are more things that we share together than divides us. And honestly, as someone with both Tagalog and Kapampangan roots, we just need to look beyond the labels and stereotypes against one another to get a better understanding of our shared struggles and heritage.
Yes,
And
that is basically what all humans have to do. We have to look beyond these, how did he call it? The labels, beyond the labels. That's the only way to make things work.
thus pave a path towards a brighter future for all our people, regardless of the language they speak.
Yes.
Now, prior to colonialism, the Luzones were renowned throughout Asia as valiant warriors, wealthy traders, and master seafarers. Unknown to many, they had legendary kings and queens who were actually blood-related to the Sultans of Brunei, the Sultans of Sulu and Maguindanao, and the emperors of the Majapahit, and many more. They were friends and allies with the ancient peoples of what are now China, Japan, India, Thailand, Turkey, Indonesia, Malaysia, and many others. Unknown to many, a decade before Ferdinand Magellan reached the islands of the Visayas in 1521, the first known recorded encounter between the Europeans and the Luzones had already happened 10 years before, during the Portuguese conquest of Malacca in 1511. And the Portuguese recorded them as Luzones from their homeland, the Kingdom of Luzon. Now,
Okay.
not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but those were their attempt at saying and adopting the native term Luzon into Portuguese, which eventually turned into Luzon and the Luzones when translated into Spanish. Now, the Sultanate of Malacca during this time was actually one of the most important trading centers in the world, and the Luzones were among the prominent ethnic communities who were present and active in this lucrative international trade. The
I mean, if they were such good or if they were such good seafarers, if they were good in going to other lands on their boats and everything, of course they would be in the main boiling pots of trade and everything. Of course.
Luzones were also well known in the Straits of Malacca for being fierce warriors, prosperous entrepreneurs, and brilliant public leaders. Indeed, the Luzones commanded massive armadas of warships and merchant vessels, mighty fleets that became crucial in securing dominance in Southeast Asia during the height of the global spice trade. Hence, the necessity for the Portuguese to secure their friendship and alliance with the Luzones in 1511.
I mean, the Portuguese were like the seafarers of Europe. Those were like the big ones in Europe back in that time. So eventually, yes, of course, they would meet. Of course.
This, however, was not the first documentation of Luzon. The Laguna copper plate inscription written in the year 900 CE or 900 AD is the earliest known historical document of Luzon. Indeed, it is the oldest known calendar-dated document found in the Philippines. This piece of copper scroll found in 1989 recorded several of the various pre-colonial settlements of Luzon,
Where was that found? That is interesting.
including Tondo, then written as Tundun. Now, although Tondo today is just a district within the national capital city of Manila,
Yes, Tondo was a whole stretch of land back then, right?
Tondo, according to the various oral traditions of the Kapampangan people and historical records of the Philippines, had actually been the long-established and traditional dominant seat of power in Luzon for many centuries prior to the arrival of the conquistadors in the late 1500s. Now, before we continue, I just want to clarify that today's video is just a brief introduction into the fascinating world and the forgotten history of the Luzones people. You know, this video is not a video about the complete history of the Kingdom of Luzon. And I know that a lot of you have been requesting for me to make a series of videos about the many diverse pre-colonial kingdoms of our ancestors, like Butuan, Maguindanao, Sulu,
I would
Luzon,
like
and
that.
many more. So stay tuned for my upcoming videos and upcoming books about the many diverse pre-colonial kingdoms and ancient societies of what is now the Philippines and Southeast Asia. But for
Very
now,
cool.
back to our topic. So the next oldest known set of accounts pertaining to what is now Luzon would come from the Chinese records during the Song Dynasty, which reigned in ancient China between the years 960 CE to 1279. However, a Chinese version of the name Luzon or Lusong would only appear during the Ming Dynasty.
These old maps are just amazing. That is crazy. Back in the day when there were only ships, when people did this by going from island to island, from continent to continent. I respect those people so much. Wow.
During which the Ming Annals recorded the Kingdom of Luzon as Lusongguo. It was also during this period that the Ming Dynasty and the Kingdom of Lusong exchanged many succeeding envoys and emissaries to cement stronger relations between one another. As a matter of fact, the earliest recorded diplomatic mission from Lusong to Ming China was in the year 1372. It was also said that the Kingdom of Lusong was among the countries visited by the legendary Ming treasure fleet of Admiral Zhang He sometime between 1405 to 1433. Now, what is often referred to as the Kingdom of Luzon was actually a collection of semi-independent principalities, city-states, and petty kingdoms that was somewhat similar to the political setup of the Holy Roman Empire in Europe. But we can explore and explain more about this geopolitical system in future videos. Now,
I mean, I guess that was the way it just worked all around the world. In Europe, you had all of these groupings that were then, like somehow combined. We've got the same here in the Philippines. It's just a way that the world moved. You had lots of, I'm going to call them tribes or different cultures living next to each other. And after a while, you had to see, okay, there's this global trade, and we have to, in order to make profit for all of us, we have to somehow work together. And so the close ones that understood each other formed like alliances, and just that's how the world became what it is now. Basically a group of alliances that are all around the world.
Now, throughout the islands of the Philippine archipelago, women occupied many esteemed positions in political and religious life before colonialism. And the
Women in the Philippines had a way different role, right? Women were actually equal to men somehow, and even had much more important roles in the basic world back then. I think in the Philippines it was that way. I'm not really sure.
Foremost example of a female ruler in these islands was my own direct ancestor, the Great Kalangitan of Luzon, popularly known today as Dayang Kalangitan, who eventually succeeded her father as the Lakan, the paramount ruler of Luzon. And Kalangitan ushered in the golden age of Lusong during a very long reign, which according to oral traditions was believed to be from around the mid-1400s down to roughly the early 1500s. But Kalangitan was not the only queen of Luzon, and you can learn more about these amazing queens in my new book, The Fierce Women of Early Southeast Asia.
Very cool.
This book actually covers over 2,000 years of history, culture, and oral traditions about our fierce and amazing ancestors. So don't miss out and order your copies today. But for now, back to our topic. As mentioned,
He's a good salesman. He is a good salesman, yes. You have to give him that.
Eventually, between the 1400s and the 1500s, Luzon became a trading powerhouse in the region, as the Luzones people...
That was also this year, Bay of Manila, Bay de Manila, Maribela Ahas de Verne. The Bay of Manila, wow. Very cool.
Luzon became a trading powerhouse in the region, as the Luzones people subsequently held the monopoly of maritime trade with China. They were also well known for exporting firearms, like large bronze cannons, long before Europeans ever reached Manila Bay. And it was this prominence and lucrative trading rights that attracted many to Luzon. You know, from the infamous Woku merchant pirates who intercepted the ships between Luzon, Japan, and China, to the Sultan of Brunei, who was said to have invaded Tondo in the late 1400s. And it was in fact this conflict between Tondo and Brunei that laid the foundations of the pre-colonial walled city of Maynila, which ironically was ruled by the direct descendants of the once rivals, the Sultan of Brunei and the Lakans of Tondo. But more
Really? Okay.
on this in future videos. In the following century, we saw the coming of the Spaniards, aka the Conquistadors. Now unknown to a lot of people, on July 29, 1521, the Spanish Conquistadors abducted my ancestor, the young Prince of Luzon, and this happened within just a few months after Magellan's death in the Battle of Mactan. So the surviving crew of the Magellan Elcano expedition encountered the Armada, or the fleet of the Sultan of Brunei. And this impressive armada with almost 300 warships was led by the young Prince of Luzon, who was also the Laksamana, or the Admiral of the Sultan of Brunei, the
Laksamana, okay.
powerful maritime empire that dominated Southeast Asia in the 1500s. And this prince was Raja Aceh, the beloved grandson of the legendary Sultan Bolkiah of Brunei and his wife Putri Lela Menchanay of Sulu. And on his father's side, he was the grandson of Brunei's once rival Kalangitan of Luzon. Now the young Raja Aceh of Maynila.
Throughout the generations, it's always interesting to see how all these branches somewhere interconnect, intertwine, get together, go apart. How everything, this is very interesting. I would like to draw like this ancestral tree now from all of this.
Would later be known in history and better known to many Filipinos today as the Raja Matanda. And if you look at older records, he was considered to be the king of Luzon when the Spaniards returned in the 1560s and 70s. And he, along with his younger brother Lakandula of Tondo and their nephew Raja Suliman of Maynila, were the last independent paramount kings of Luzon. So long history short, 50 years after this encounter in 1521, Tondo and Manila fell to the conquistadors in 1571, with most of the important principalities and city-states of Luzon falling like dominoes, one after another in the aftermath. And this is what eventually led to the creation of the Spanish colonial province of La Pampanga on December 11, 1571, hence today's Pampanga Day. But unknown to many, the Luzones were actually not easily defeated. In fact, the Spaniards proceeded to lay siege on several, not just one, several fortified city-states.
I bet they were not easy. They were fighting for their country. I mean, come on.
of Luzon. For example, the Siege of Cainta in August of 1571, the Siege of Betis in 1572, and Lubao also in 1572. And thus, the foundation of La Pampanga as a colonial province was seen as the downfall of the ancient kingdoms of Luzon. There's actually a common misconception that, as opposed to Datu Lapu-Lapu of the Visayas and later Sultan Kudarat of Mindanao, who valiantly resisted Spanish colonialism on the battlefield, the rulers of Luzon allegedly quickly surrendered after a minor skirmish. But the truth is, what happened was more of a gradual shifting of political power. In fact, the Spaniards did not actually take complete control of Luzon, until perhaps another century, in the late 1600s or even in the early 1700s. And throughout their rule in Luzon, throughout Spanish colonialism, they relied heavily on the social and political structures of the Datus, the Lakans, and the Rajas to govern and defend the islands.
Yes, you can't just take apart something that you've taken over. If that thing is working, you let them work on, but you put yourself above them. That's basically what they did. They didn't interfere much with the inner workings of society. They just changed the level of rulers in a way. Wow. Lots of different forces coming down to one and somehow functioning. That's not easy. Those were not easy times.
We must also understand that our ancestors' concepts of geography and politics were far different than that of the West. Sadly, most of us Filipinos today are more familiar with and more inclined towards Western biases in practically all matters regarding our ancestors and the world they inhabited. So let's make it clear that the defeat of Manila at the hands of the Spaniards and their Visayan allies did not mean a total surrender of Luzon to colonialism. In fact, Raja Suleiman himself of Manila was still waiting for reinforcements from Brunei until he suddenly faded from Spanish records sometime after 1578. And 10 years later, his children would rise up and conspire with the Japanese and the Sultanate of Brunei to overthrow the Spaniards. But in the meantime, the Luzones negotiated a peaceful solution with the Europeans. And this was perhaps to prevent further harm to the people.
That is it, to prevent the harm of the people. If you see that there's a force that can overtake you, and you have the choice of either fighting or trying to save what you have and move on in almost the same way that you did, it's a hard choice. Not everybody and not every group of people will die for the cause. They will go on with their day to day and just accept that maybe some rules have changed and some ways of doing things will change, but we will live on as a people.
While at the
Very
same
understandable.
time gathering enough strength to fight back and eventually reclaim their sovereignty at the right time. And it was said that the Spaniards' failure to honor their end of the bargain, to honor their promises to our ancestors, gave the Datus of Luzon grounds and justification for future uprisings.
Yes, and the strength of the people and the trust in them. That is good. That's not a bad tactic, Play along for years, but strengthen the power of the revolt or of the revolution, and then make that explode onto the scene.
Like the revolt of the Lakans in 1588. Many may not know, but within the 300 years of Spanish rule over the Philippines, there has actually been over 200 recorded uprisings against the cruelties of colonialism, long before the Philippine Revolution of 1896. We must also not forget that the Spaniards never actually succeeded in conquering and colonizing many places of the Philippines, like the mountains of the Cordilleras, the indigenous Lumans, the Sultanates of Maguindanao, Sulu, and many more. But back to the Luzones, let's find out how exactly did the Luzones ended up being the first Filipinos in America. As mentioned in my older videos on October 18, 1587, the Luzones Indios landed in what is now Morro Bay, California. They sailed with Pedro de Unamuno in a Spanish expedition to explore the coast of Northern California. They were the first recorded people from the Philippines to set foot in what is now the United States. And these Luzones Indios were highly skilled navigators and experienced sailors who aided the Spaniards in navigating the vast waters of Asia and the Pacific.
That is so cool. That map is so interesting. That's North America, South America. That's Mexico in between. Let me turn off the captions for a second here. Die neue Welt. Wow, Welt is the German word for world. And die is the German word for the. And new, it's a mixture of new and neue, which is the word for new. This is very cool. This is like a mixture of Latin, Spanish, German, Germanic, Old German. Cuba still written with a V and like in Latin. Okay. Wow, this is an interesting map.
Spaniards in navigating the vast waters of Asia and the Pacific. Many of these Luzones Indios came from the vast province of La Pampanga, and they continued to arrive in the Americas throughout the Spanish colonial period. They also helped the Franciscan missionaries in establishing many of the earliest colonial towns in what is now California. Now, in October of 1588...
Oh, okay. That is okay. San Miguel, San Antonio, La Soledad, okay.
Colonial towns in what is now California. Now, in October of 1588, a year after the Luzones landed in what is now California, the Lacans and the Datus of Luzon, led by Magat Salamat of Tondo, were exposed for leading a pan-Asian conspiracy to overthrow the Spaniards and liberate the Philippines. But sadly, as a result of this foiled revolt, Magat Salamat and his cousins, the leaders of this uprising, were gruesomely executed by the Spaniards. While Magat Salamat's own brothers, Junicio Capulong of Candaba and Felipe Salonga of Polo, and their sons, along with several other Luzones datus like Pedro Balingin of Pandacan and others, were exiled to Acapulco in what is now Mexico. And they were the first officially recorded people from the Philippines to settle in what are now the Americas. So long story short, the Luzones people have a long, fascinating, and deep, complicated history in both Asia and the Americas. They aided European explorers and Christian missionaries while at the same time fiercely resisting colonialism in the Philippines and beyond. Unknown to many, they were even part of the many attempts to liberate Malacca from the Portuguese in the mid-1500s. But in the long run, they were also instrumental in fostering centuries of cultural exchange and deeper connections between the diverse societies and indigenous peoples on both sides of the Pacific Ocean. And honestly, we're just, barely...
This is an interesting one. If anybody knows, please tell me where that was found. And if in the meantime, how old is this video? Wait, I think this video is 2 years old. In the meantime, has there been any new findings, anything, old texts like this? Wow.
Really scratching the surface. Now, as I've mentioned before, many times before, knowing our roots and knowing our history does not simply mean a blind, nostalgic longing for the glitz and the glamour of the past, while ignoring the conditions of the present. It means being awakened and immersed in the realities of today, armed and empowered with the wisdom of our ancestors. You know, this really means that we must stay rooted in our history, while addressing our present-day struggles and while we pave the path towards a brighter future for our people. Because as our elders say in Tagalog, ang hindi marunong lumigon sa pinanggalingan ay hindi makakarating sa paroroonan. Or as our Kapampangan elders say, nung may agyong balikdan, ingke kang milabas, may agyong dasan, ingke kang bukas. And that is it for me today, so let me know what you think about today's topic in the comments below. And if you like this video or learn a thing or two, don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and please subscribe. But of course, before we go, today's shoutout goes to my brother from another mother, the very talented Wax of Pampanga. Shoutout to Lakandanum of New York, San Chewy from Indonesia, the amazing artist Faizal Rahman of Malaysia, and Leo from Batangas, Philippines. And syempre, special thanks and special shoutout to my patron and dear friend Dr. Dale Maglalang. And you all know that this video will not exist without the love and the support of all my patrons and subscribers and friends like Dale throughout these years. Kaya naman sa inyong lahat, to all of you, maraming salamat po, or Tagalog na pala yun. Kapampangan, dahalpong salamat, anin bahasa Milayo, terima kasih. See you next.
Nahangpong salamat. Okay.
Time where Tagalog kita kids, and Kapampangan, Migitix, anin bahasa Milayo, Jum palagi.
Very cool. I really like his energy. I like his energy, and the way he explains things is really good. He knows what he's talking about. That is really cool. Very interesting. I mean, I'm going to sit down and take a look at that a bit closer. I would like to see, take a look at actual maps, like where was which group, where were alliances, all of that. I'm really interested in that. But this was a good starting point for me. Just to know, in the end, I'm still not sure if I'm going to end up in Cebu or in Baguio. You never know. And since Baguio is all the way up there in the middle of that big landmass of Luzon, who knows, maybe I will need to know a few things. No, it's really interesting, and yes, I feel very good listening to all of this. Really, really good. The whole concept of Asia and all of the countries that were over there around the Pacific Sea, or the Philippines in general. You've got the Philippines somewhat in the middle of it all, and all these other countries everywhere around it. That is such an interesting construct of alliances, friendships, of trading partners, of shipping routes, everything. A very, very interesting world. And yes, the national anthem touched me. I'm definitely going to listen to a traditional recording of the national anthem, and I'm going to look up the lyrics. But what I heard here, these ladies all did a really, really good job. Yes, folks, maraming salamat po for being here, for sticking around for almost 1 hour. You guys are awesome. I'm wishing you once again a very happy Independence Day. And yes, take care and stay safe out there. Ingat, amping, and as I always say, sarangge, anyang. Until the next time, paalam. Bye.